Look at that. Look at that. Holy moly, what is that, 10 kilograms, 13 kilograms? Holy moly, that's a lot of oxygen. Welcome back, my fellow duplicants, to some more oxygen not included. Today, we are taking a look at what happens when we take this polluted water bottling thing that we were looking at last time, and then scale it up by adding a whole bunch of Puft farms on top of this. So at its core, essentially what we're doing here is we're taking polluted water, we're putting it over here, we're letting all of that off gas to make ourselves a lot of oxygen, and then we have all of these puffs that provide us with lots and lots of food. So we have food and oxygen and, well, technically a whole lot of water too. So a system like this could be something that you might design your entire base around at some point. As sort of an idea of how do you create food and how do you get oxygen for your base. Just kind of a different idea. Now, as you could imagine, there's a lot of automation going on here. Everything from automatically sorting out the different types of puffs we have here to automatically resupplying them when we need to add a few more to our farms up top. Not only that, we've got a lot of materials that are being sorted out, such as slime, that we want to automatically bring and feed our dust caps down here. We also need to automatically bottle up polluted water, so how in the world am I doing that? And on top of this, we need to convert it all to clean oxygen before we go and use it in other things like atmosphere. So, a lot of different little systems all packed into one build. Now, as far as the actual building process for this machine, it took a while to get set up, and it took much longer to kind of get it up and running and stable. Since it's a ranch, it just takes a while for all the critters to kind of grow and then even out and whatnot. Alright, so let's get into the details of how I'm bottling up the water. So this is actually based on the same sort of thing that I was working on in the last video, so you can check it out here in the top right. But I have made some changes based on your guys' recommendations. First and foremost, the only duplicant that can get inside of here is Meep, or shall we say, this Meep. So Meep can run inside of here, and he's going to use a pitcher pump. Instead of using a sweepy bot, although it's not as cool, it is very fast and also extremely efficient. Picks up 200 kilograms and runs on over here. This is the exact same automation signal that I had last time, or shall we say close to it. However, unfortunately, the duplicant checkpoint station didn't last. I got rid of that. What I put here instead is a manual airlock because it's extremely slow. But as Meep runs on over here to the right, he'll be detected by this signal here. So once Meep has been detected, this door here is going to automatically close, and therefore Meep cannot make his way all the way over here to the bottle emptier. This thing is set up to be auto bottling for polluted water. However, if you disable auto bottling, that will stop this loop altogether. So since Meep has to wait at this door, he gets stopped in this position every single time. And once that door closes, because it's much faster, Meep can no longer make his way over here to the bottle emptier. And therefore, drops that polluted water right down here like that in its bottled form, which is important, by the way. Many guys were asking about this. There is a different code, I guess, involved as far as how polluted water is given off from a bottle as compared to a puddle. And it's much more efficient. So the bottles are important. And it's also important that they drop down a distance, A, so that the dupe doesn't pick it up, and B, so that they stack on top of each other and make really big bottles. So you can see down here, I have many, many tons of polluted water. We've got, well, it goes off the page. I don't know how much I have. I have a lot. And then Meep's like, well, I guess I can't do that task. And now, unfortunately, he's idle, but he would go do something else. There he goes. He's now walked away. And hey, the pitcher pump is back, so that's cool. So he'll make that loop again. Oh, you know what I can do here? I just realized I can optimize this a little bit more. You know what? If I add a buffer gate here, that should allow a delay and then cause this to reset. So I take this, run to an AND gate, run to a buffer gate with 0.1 second, flip it to not, and then have this set to, I don't know, 3 seconds or something, which means that Meep should automatically re-task to the bottle emptier instead of kind of getting stuck there on idle. So now he drops it. That door opens. Ha ha! Ha 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 ha! How much faster can we go? 2 seconds? Oh yes. Alright, so that's the bottling process. I do have one idea down here that's going to make this even more interesting, but we'll cover that at the end. Alright, so now that Meep is bottling like crazy, look at this guy go. Alright, so now that I have this polluted water down here, on top of that, essentially I'm feeding a bunch of puffs. And I'm also feeding a bunch of Prince Puffs. Now when it comes to ranching puffs, they're kind of an interesting creature because depending on who they're paired with inside the pen kind of changes what egg they're going to create. So to make this simple, if not pinned with a Prince Puff, the chance of laying a Prince Puffed egg will increase over time. So this on its own we'll try to make that. However, if a Puft is paired with a Prince Puft, then it will want to make more dense and squeaky puffs. Having one singular puffed prince in a chamber will make more puffed princes. If you have two of them, they're going to make puffs. So the key here is to have at least two puffed princes in a chamber so that you can get a consistent source of puffs. And then your puffs are pretty much just going to make edible eggs unless you have a need or a reason for dense puffs and squeaky puffs. So to manage this, essentially what I have over here is a combination of both Prince Puffs and Puffs in the same chamber. Although over here on the left I have too many Puffs. So I'm going to go ahead and attack a few of these. But the key ingredient to keeping this balanced up here is to always have some of these on standby so that I can wrangle them up and drop them into the chamber. Now as far as feeding these Puffs, it's not complicated at all. They just suck in polluted oxygen, which we have lots of it flowing out of all of these bottles down here. So the oxygen overlay kind of maintains around 1.7 kilograms right down here when it's right next to the bottle. That will kind of decrease as it flows out and get closer and closer to oxygen up here where I'm doing all the filtering. So in order to make these pens work, I have to get rid of a few of these when I have too many. So here's how this works. Ari's gonna come up here and is gonna kill off one of the Puffs, and then it's going to die. And at this point, I have less than 6 critters inside of here, and I also have a critter sensor that's telling me, hey, guess what? You have less than 6. Now, because everything's automated, here's what I got going on. The automation signal runs on over here. If any of these are less than 6, then I'm going to open up this mechanical door over here. And down in this area, this is where I have all of my extra Puffs that are all sorted out. All right, so the door has opened now. This allows my duplicants to go inside of here and wrangle up the extra critters that are inside of each of these chambers. So this is set to auto wrangle 0, and then I have higher priorities for the ones that I actually want to get out of here, such as the Puffed and or Prince Puffed. So Meep runs on in here and we'll actually go ahead and wrangle this little guy up. Now, in order to keep this door open, I'm using duplicant motion sensors down here, all strung together, just like that. That way they don't end up getting trapped inside of here. Because what they're going to do is once this is wrangled, this thing will be delivered to that chamber that we just cleared out. So Meep's gonna grab this Puffed, and we're going to watch it run on over here, just like so. And then that is now delivered to that last spot we had right there. This Meep down here, we have many Meeps today, I installed the Meep mod. Everybody's Meep. Is going to wrangle up this Prince Puffed. All right, so there we go. Ruby is now taking this and it's now going to redeliver it back up here. Now in order to maintain a certain population of Puffs down here, what I have to do is automatically sort out an egg. So by taking a look at the conveyor loader like this, essentially what I'm doing is I'm checking each one of these and I'm looking for a dense pufflet egg there, or a squeaky puffed egg, or a pufflet, or the Prince Puffed, or just the normal puffed. And if I find any of these, then I send a true signal to this conveyor shutoff, which then will sort it and bring it down here. So I can control how many eggs are down here at any one time. So the thing is, I really only want to maintain a small population down here. So we have just a few dense puffs, or just a few squeaky puffs. And then for Prince Puffs, I like to keep this to a rate around 3 and 3. So that way I always have at least 3 in there. So by using the critter sensor, I use this and a NOT gate to an AND gate, and that is what controls this conveyor shutoff. It really is just the same simple automation repeated a bunch of times. Now the thing is, I'm overproducing the amount of Puffs here, which is great because we're going to be able to get a lot of food out of them. And the other thing is we also got slime here. So I'm going to check this one more time right down here, and I'm looking for slime. So slime will continue on while everything else gets moved over here into this little spot. So this is just a little 1x1 tile right here with a little bit of water inside of it. I think I saw this on a Francis John video, a really interesting way of just getting rid of your extra critters. So once they hatch, they actually will just instantly drown inside of here. And then this door right here will actually keep them confined. It's set to auto so the critters can't run through it, but your duplicates can then go down here and actually pull out all the meat. Just in case you're wondering, Puffs don't go through pneumatic doors if the pneumatic doors are set to auto. If you set it to open, oh man, they all go flying through. So be careful about that. Now, the same thing applies when you hook up a signal switch to this, because that is going to set it to open or closed. So if we set that via an automation signal, they're going to want to fly through there. So we're going to have to keep that in mind when we go to design our ranches. Now the thing is, I'm overproducing the amount of Puffs I actually need, which is great because they will be used for food. How this works is the shipping rail just continues down here, and I'm looking for slime. So slime continues out here to the left, everything else goes up into this spot right here. And I have a 1x1 tile that is filled with a little bit of water here. So you can see this pufflet actually just hatched and is now unfortunately drowning. But once it dies, it will turn into meat. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of eggs inside of here. And there he goes. Bleep. Poor little guy. And just like that, we have 1,600 calories of meat right there, ready to be picked up. So that's an easy way to just automate killing off your extra critters there. So Harold's gonna pick up that meat. He does get a little wet, unfortunately, but it's okay, he'll be fine. And then he's going to run on down here and turn that into some delicious barbecue. All right, so now that we're down here at the very bottom, let me show you what I got going on with the farm. Essentially, I have 2 piles of slime right there. Tons and tons of it at this point because the puffs are making a lot of it. But I also have 2 auto sweepers set up that can actually reach that spot right there, so I can automatically supply the slime. Now this chamber down here is set up in such a way that the carbon dioxide just kind of naturally pools down here. I think I might want to change this to some solid tiles over here on the left. That way the carbon dioxide can maybe flow around a little bit easier because the higher pressure stuff is over here. Let me go ahead and try that. So if I change that, and then I just let it run a little faster, I'm not sure if it's really evening it. Yeah, you know what? It might have evened out a little bit more. Now, just in case you're wondering, I have these liquid vents here. I'm actually feeding it with 2 pumps so that I can keep up with all the polluted water that I can actually feed into this thing. This actually just goes down here to a hydro sensor, which is anything below a number, so that it doesn't overfill. So 900 kilograms in this case. So then it automatically shuts off and we don't end up flooding everything. And then ultimately, any of this polluted oxygen that ends up making its way past these puffs up here, then gets converted into oxygen, which ultimately gets pumped out and used for something useful inside of our base. All right, so that's how this system works. The real question is how much oxygen and food do we produce per cycle on average? So I'm going to let this run for about 10 cycles as I go and grab some lunch myself, and then we'll see just how effective this thing really is. All right, so 24 cycles later, I have some food, some groceries, and some results for you. The amount of food I was able to produce is actually quite impressive. Over the last couple of cycles, we've actually been able to produce a good amount of food. We're talking 132,000 calories of barbecue and 114,000 of fried mushroom. So what this works out to is 5,500 calories of barbecue per cycle and 4,700 calories of fried mushroom. So when you account for dupes, you can support about 10 dupes altogether comfortably off of this little farm right here. Although I would say that this is a fair amount of space for 10 dupes. But we are getting some oxygen out of it, and I think that's where the real key comes in here. Now, as far as our current oxygen production, it's averaging out to 206 kilograms per cycle, which to be honest, really isn't that much. So we're gonna tweak it. We're gonna bump it up quite a bit here. We're gonna use a little bit of water. Watch what happens when I do this. If you take a look at our bottles right now, you can see that it's, 70 grams or so, depending on how many things are open. But watch what happens when I put a little bit of water on it. I'll put in about 2 kilograms worth of water. So that's 1 per tile. Ooh, it kind of struggled to keep up there, but for a moment, it gave off a ton of oxygen. Let me try that again. We'll go with 4 kilograms. That's a little bit more. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Holy moly, what is that? 10 kilograms, 13 kilograms? Holy moly, that's a lot of oxygen. So what these bottles are doing is they're running like 4 kilograms per second. If we can figure out how to get this water down here predictably and turn it on and off, we can actually produce a lot more polluted oxygen. We can actually cause these bottles to off-gas much, much faster. And that's because they're not always bumped up against the limit of 1,800 grams. So here's how I think I can automate this. If I take this guy and I just move it right over here like that, kind of get that out of the area. What I can do beneath these bottles is take this, I'll make that a mesh tile like so, and then I'll just build this right down here like this. Now in this spot, I'm going to use a door, and we're going to plug it in. Actually, you know what? I don't think I even want to plug it in. I kind of want it to run slow. And then what I can do is hook this up to an Atmos sensor right here, which is going to tell me just how much air pressure we have in this area. And that will just run right up there like that. All right, so what this automation signal is doing is it's saying, hey, are we above 4 kilograms? If so, we're going to keep this door closed, which means we're going to push a little bit of extra water right up here, covering just the base of the polluted water. We're trying to keep that below 1,800 grams. At least what's covering. At that point, it should continue to off-gas. So if I make this 900 grams here, that should just flow down there. Do that twice. All right, so I've got a total of 2 kilograms of water right down here. I'm going to try to bring in another 2 kilograms right on top of that. So a total of 2,002. You can see that jumped over. So it's opening up, and that turns off the polluted bottles. Look at that. So that drops to 0. So now we can get these puffs of really high pressure. And this way we could force a little bit more polluted oxygen through our system and therefore produce more oxygen on the way out. Look at that. Oh, there we go. We went low. That thing closed. Now we got a little bit more water up there. Ha! That's awesome. So the neat thing about this is that it should maintain a pressure low enough to the point where we're not blowing up our duplicant's ears all the time. But at the same time, we're definitely forcing a lot through there. So the amount of oxygen I'm going to produce should be a lot higher because we're forcing it to go past the puffs and into the deodorizer. Oh yeah, that's working good. Boom, we're barely through part of the cycle here. We're already up to 300 kilograms. If anything, I need more pipes. Yeah, so if you look at this, look at that. That's up to 2 kilograms up here. That number might be a little bit high. I might want to drop that down a little bit lower, but this way we can control the pressure inside of here. That's pretty neat. Ha! Ha! I like it. Now, if we want to get even more fancy with it, what I can do, I can put a dense puft right up there. There's currently 80 tiles right up here. And if I get a little brave here, I can get rid of one of these deodorizers and replace it with a grooming station. And then I could put a couple of auto sweepers inside of here, not only for supplying stuff to our deodorizers or taking it away, but I can also collect the oxalate. And I can pretty much just run these through solid tiles so that they don't off-gas, which is great. And then I'll just build up all the oxalate right here. You can see right now I have 280 kilograms, which isn't that great, but I could definitely crank that up, and then I'll give myself, and then I'll have an oxidizer for my rocket fuel. You know what, we might as well just sweep everything here. Why not? And then I can use the critter sensor here, just like this, and I'll tie in the dense puft to my entire automation thing. So when I want to bring out some more dense puffs, I could do that. Boom, just like so. Now an area of 80 can only hold 5 dense puffs comfortably. So I'm going to make sure that that is, you know, below 5. And this is only ever 5, which means I can store a couple more critters here. Take that up to 2. There we go. Ooh, let me take a look at my report. Previous cycle, 844 kilograms of oxygen. That's pretty good. And look at this, we're not getting any polluted oxygen. How about that? Until you run out of filtration medium. But don't worry about that, because we can automate that too. Here we go, put in a couple of receptacles right there, and maybe another one right there. And then I'll load it, which happens to be right over here, and ship in more sand, or regolith. After it's been cooled, mind you. I noticed a little bit of a traffic jam here, slowing things down. All right, I changed it up. This now just runs like this. So there we go, now we got a little dense puffed up here, and it's making ourselves some oxalate for our rockets. Because why not? You can do a lot with this whole thing. I mean, is it way complicated for what it is? Yeah, but it's also serving like so many different little functions. All right, so let's check out just how much oxygen this has made over the last couple of cycles. This cycle right here, 922 kilograms. It's good enough for 15 dupes right there. The previous cycle, 930, so it's actually pretty stable. And then just before that, when I was starting it, 844 kilograms. So yeah, by adjusting this little dial right here, you can really crank up the amount of oxygen you're able to push through this. Now obviously this thing is running as fast as it is because I'm actually pumping it out as fast as I am. And you probably want to filter this too, just in case you get a little bit of polluted oxygen. Which again, we could do the exact same thing as what we do right here, just with a high pressure vent and then drop it back in here. It's because I see a little bit of polluted oxygen every now and then finding its way in. Not to mention if you were to run out of filtration medium for a moment there, you'd actually push a lot of polluted oxygen through, so something to keep in mind. You know what? Why not? I'll just build it for you. This thing's gonna end up a blueprint anyhow. Alright, so now I've added some filters here, just in case we end up with some polluted oxygen. It should get detected and thrown out. Let's see if we can find some. If I turn these off, that should do it. Or not. No, I'll turn them all off then. There we go, now I see some. Yeah, so as it's detecting polluted oxygen, that's being kicked out and actually recycled. Cool. The one nice thing about this is that it really maintains a nice temperature all the time. You're not pumping in a lot of heat to your area. Unless you're bringing in incredibly hot water, well, then that might be a problem. But for the most part here, I haven't had to do anything to try to maintain the temperature inside of here. I just brought in water, and the rest was just stable. Alright, so there you have it. That's what happens when we run with the idea of making our oxygen using polluted water, bottled up like so, and then running that into puffs. You do end up with a fair amount of oxygen, that's for sure. You can crank that up super high. You can also get a decent amount of food out of it. It's an interesting strategy, and maybe one that you might want to try in your base at some point. I will say it does take a while to set up and ramp up to the point where it's at right now. I had to dig my way up to several of these puddles here, all to collect all of the polluted water back into one spot. And it took many cycles to kind of get this many puffs built up over time. So maybe it's worth giving a try. But there's probably a lot of really good ideas just kind of nested inside of here that might be useful to you. If you got the blueprint mod and you want to try this thing out in your base, I've put a link to it down there in the description below. At any rate, that's all I got time for today. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this little episode here of Oxygen Not Included. If this looks like the channel for you, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. Stay awesome, guys. Peace. Brothgar out.